Hello, everyone, and welcome to our keynote. I'm here with Ray Martens, and my name is Willem Gorter, and we will have a conversation over the next 30 minutes to talk about just do it and how we create opportunities for researchers and parents to learn on one another's experiences. Hi, Ray, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm well too. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
I am too. Let's move our slides forward. So we have 5 key themes that we're looking to have a discussion from both sides of the lens today, and we're excited to bring them to you. Now, young Willem, let's start with you, actually. Can you tell us today about what it means to you as a professional to create a movement and where it all began for you?
Yeah, I have been reflecting on that with my research career over the last 20 years and working in the field of childhood disability research and having the opportunity to work with so many people, including families and children and young people and adults with disabilities. I was thinking that the issues that we're trying to address in our research are often quite complex. If we think of the answers we are trying to find, and that in itself makes it that we have to work together, and we have to welcome those various perspectives, including of the people, and first and foremost of the people with the lived experience. Another experience I want to bring is that a little bit from the teaching, and in particular at McMaster University in Hamilton in Canada, there's a long tradition with so-called problem-based learning. So how do we actually solve problems? And the premise is that people come together and all students, including the teachers, can learn together. And there's a saying of we learn from each other, we learn with each other, and we learn about each other. And I think I take that with me if we are doing research together. That really helps to, I think, set values, how we work in partnership, and maybe that has resulted in that movement, an openness to learning together, and also a commitment to relationship building. And that's the only way I can see how we can drive research to grow and improve. So I have a question for you too. So can you tell other people about creating a movement, Ray?
Well, from the family and patient side, I can definitely say from my experiences in Canada that this is a very slow growing movement from what we call, I guess, essentially the stakeholder side. And I think that we lack a distinct amount of analysis as to what that process looks like for a lot of families and where that fits into the patient and family experience as well too. Starting from the beginnings, which is early discovery and realizing that partnership exists, and moving through understanding complex concepts and systems, and developing new relationships where previously there may have been a power dynamic to battle with. And then also to finding the benefits that come from understanding the results from those connections that we have together in co-design. And from then on as well too, how those knowledge brokers go out into the world and share their experiences with other people who have similar lived experience. It's a huge journey, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But I think that what comes down to is we need to continue to see this, as Alexandre mentioned earlier, about developing a community practice. So people who have that mutual set of values, because at the end of the day, we are humans coming together to help kids reach their potential and their goals. And so that's a very wonderful goal to have collectively, but we need to consider how that looks as we do that together.
For sure.
And let's consider the next conversation here as well too, which is scope, and a bit of an intimidating conversation from I would imagine both sides.
Yeah. partnership in research sounds so big, right? And I'm sure, and many people are listening to our keynote today. It must throw people off too. I'm sure. What would you say to those people?
Well, I think the first time I went to a research conference, I invited a bunch of parents as well too. And one of the experiences came where a parent got quite upset and left the room. And I thought I should probably take care of this. And they basically were so excited to be there, but they saw the scope of all that was ahead, and they said, "It's all broken. Where do we begin?" And so that was a lot of overwhelming feelings to deal with. I said, we have a thing in parenthood where we feel that we are the only problem solvers, that it is our task. It's kind of like having to paint a giant mural and saying it's only ours. We have only our tools. That's it. But really, nobody has said that. But if we can take one section and make it our own of that big mural and put all of our heart and our art into that, that is something to behold in its beauty as well. And then when you tell other people, well, I have more areas that need to be filled, bring your art to that, then that mural begins to fill itself in so many ways. And that's when we need to continue to invite more people to the table in that respect. That's when scope begins to look more tangible.
Mm-hmm. I love the way you said it. Bring your heart and your art. I love the analogy. Thank you, Ray.
For you, what would you consider to be making a start with these relationships and developing them?
Mm-hmm. I think we can look at it at different levels. First of all, as an individual researcher, you can ask yourself the question, how do I go about doing my research? And how do I get or find opportunities to train myself to do research in a meaningful way in partnership? So that is something I would say. The other thing is also as a research team, because the reality is that our research, going back to the puzzle and making the puzzle that everybody can bring a piece of the puzzle, is that you as a team can also help each other to make the partnerships meaningful with family partners. And then there is the organization level. I think from my experience as also in the role that I had over the last 8 years as director of CanChild and as a research center, I think it's very important that we also think collectively as a research center, what are our values in our system and how do we support that? What is the infrastructure? Because yes, typically things do not happen by itself. You have to be purposeful and you have to make an effort to do that. So I think training is something that I mentioned. You can do that at an individual level and it's an individual responsibility. But also I think as an organization, what is it the training we provide to our staff, our students, and also to scientists? Also, what do we do in terms of knowledge mobilization? Because sometimes if you think through the research cycle, people can be involved and we can have meaningful partnerships at different stages of the research cycle. So that can start with the ideas for the research project, the actual doing of the research, but most importantly also the research translation into practice. And I have found that part very exciting and sometimes a good place to start working with families. Take, for example, the efforts and how that has been translated, because families came to us and said, we have ideas, we would like to translate it, and we work in partnership. And the last thing as an organization is also that an organization is not a standalone research center. We are all operate in a context, so within the university and in the world. So the social networking is extremely important, and there are ways of facilitating it. For example, by opening up meetings, and now in this virtual time, it's much easier to welcome people to, for example, rounds. At CanChild, we have monthly research rounds, and basically everybody could join, and through those rounds we can develop those relationships. the last two things I want to mention is that we at some point felt that we as an organization also had to improve at the organizational level and invited a family member, a parent, researcher, and a youth partner on our advisory board of CanChild. So that has made a difference. And I'm very proud that in 2019, when we were planning on our strategic 2020-2025 five-year strategic plan, we had many research and stakeholders in the room, including, of course, families and children and youth. So that are the things that you can start thinking about how to get going.
And so I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I see we're moving on to the next slide. Yeah. And I'm very interested, Ray. You are in this field now for a little bit. You made yourself a way in that research family partnership. And what would you say? What does it mean to be part of a research community as from the patient and family perspective?
Well, one thing was very interesting is part of the CanChild team, Dr. Kinga-Posniak, did some research on what it meant to engage as a partner within the CanChild setting. And one of the messages that really resonated with me as a parent, but also as someone who works as a research engagement strategist with our family engagement and research course, is that partnership is a part of the collective identity. It's a part of the meaning that comes from the roles that we have as parents or as patients or as youth. All of this plays a role in understanding and processing the complex experiences that we often have throughout our lives and with health. Mm-hmm. And for yourself, how do you juggle all of the hats, given the fact that partnership can be a multifaceted entity in itself, mm-hmm. and you can have people working at any level, really. It's a matter of what values are and what the project is. So mm-hmm. Where do you begin?
Yeah, I think it's first and foremost, it's important to recognize that we often do wear multiple hats, and that doesn't have to be a problem. So, for example, I work at a children's hospital and I'm a physician, so I have a relationship with families as a physician, as a clinician. In my role as researcher, we often meet each other in research meetings, and then we are partnering as equal partners on the research topic, and we have a common goal. In my role as director of CanChild, I also have the role of being an employer and have responsibilities for staff and students. And I'm very proud to say that at CanChild, we also have staff, including yourself, Ray, as being on projects as a paid job. And so somehow you have to bring that all together in one person. And I think providing some clarity around it, first for yourself and then to others, is important. But in the end, to be honest, it goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Ray, is that common goal. We do have a common goal. And if you make that central, I'm trying to make the comparison with the brass band that I play in, and we all come to the rehearsal or the performance, and we have a voice through our instrument, and we all have our piece to play, and together we make beautiful music. Well, once we have rehearsed, of course, you have to rehearse those things too, like you do in research. And it's so interesting if you think of people come as band members with all walks of life, have different backgrounds, have different interpretations of music, but we make the music together. And in the end, it sounds like harmony. And I think that's a very important message to give if you think of family and research partnerships.
I wholeheartedly agree. As from my experiences within the healthcare system, I can say that I like to quote Dr. Victor Montori, that healthcare is a dance. it can be a dance with a variety of feelings and a variety of experiences. But at the end, you're creating something beautiful together when everyone knows the steps. And moving forward from that, as an extension, I was planning some research rounds recently, and it was actually with one of my son's specialists who was going to be speaking for it. And I had a hard time thinking about that, to be quite honest. And after he had passed away last year, and it came to me actually yesterday that this is just a new dance. This is an extension of that. This is continued partnership in that respect. And moving forward, leveraging resources. Who is around you specifically? How do you start to identify that? What would you consider some of the tools that help you understand that?
Yeah, I think it's important because it does take time and an investment to make the partnerships meaningful and successful. But I do think I often hear there are barriers to do that. So maybe some people may say, I don't have the time. Well, it's the time you make for it, right? The other thing, do you have the resources? Well, maybe not always, and there are never enough resources. I recognize that. But at the same time, I would encourage everyone to be creative and to think within what you can do to make little steps and within your own setting as an individual researcher, in your research team, or in your organization. I think reflecting on CanChild's experiences, one of the things that I found very helpful and also I think has contributed to the success was really leveraging resources. So not to think that you have to come up with all the resources yourself, but there are ways of sharing resources. So when we were thinking of engaging with families, and bringing families on, that was the time we were thinking in terms of meetings and coming together in a room. Remember that we came together in a room and had coffee and then had a chat and round tables and so forth. We learned that that might not be the best way of connecting with families. It's better to meet families where they are. And one of our family advisories said, well, basically families are online. You have to go to Facebook. And that was the start of Parents Partnering in Research Facebook page. The Facebook page doesn't require a lot of resources. And basically, we're all contributing our time, families and researchers, to come together and be a community and have meaningful conversations. So I think that was a good example of leveraging resources. The other thing is that as the world is getting smaller in this virtual world, we also see that there is a lot of opportunity to make networks of networks. So in Canada, for example, CanChild has its own network, but there are other large research networks like Kids Brain Health Network and the Child Rights Project, for example, but they also internationally, there are other larger networks in Europe and in the UK and in Australia and other places and continents. And wouldn't it be great if we would come together and think creatively now with all our online possibilities through meetings, but also through social media, how we can share those resources. Doesn't have to cost much. So for you as a question, Ray, maybe from your perspective, for people starting out early and also thinking about, for example, trainees that are probably listening to our talk today, what do you think leveraging resources means?
Well, within my position as a research engagement strategist, the role that I play is a bit of a rare one within training courses, where I get the privilege of considering partnership as a sort of living organism. And I can identify key points, much like a physician would, as to where in this organism is something not functioning in in a successful fashion. And then we work at that to ensure that everything moves smoothly. And COVID definitely has presented some significant challenges in trainees being able to connect with communities. And my first advice would essentially be to think about it like apartment hunting. Like you find a space and you think, is this going to be a great neighborhood to look at? What is near you? What organizations, what community organizations are working with the particular population that you are looking to support? Connect with them, tell them about your work, offer an opportunity for a free evening to talk about the particular subject matter. Pandemics have been a time for learning online, and there has been no end of concerts to science presentations upon which we can experience things on a digital platform. This is a time where you can start creating those relationships, but also to understand that a lot of these online relationships are sacred spaces. A lot of these Facebook groups, on your approach, to understand that it's not, that your presence is at best a fly on the wall and you are a guest. And moving forward from there, I think that there are definite spaces upon which to do so. It's just being very mindful of the connections that you make, and to do it slow and to do it mindfully. And challenges and tensions. Partnership is obviously a very human experience, so I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe good to say that researchers are people too, right? And like you say, the human experience, and there is fear also to start working together, and so I guess especially when you're starting off your research career, but also later, people may have cold feet. What would you say as a from your perspective to help ease that stress?
Well, one thing that I've appreciated as an extension of our course is the development of a community of practice, and to find other people who are like-minded individuals who hold the same amount of values, who can help mentor through processes. Mm-hmm. I can definitely say as well too, sometimes it's good to just start right off from the beginning, and for instance, utilizing one of the presentations we had earlier was the involvement matrix, and outlining expectations beforehand, making your first session just entirely about getting to know each other on a personal level. All of these things can help to kind of ease an understanding as to barriers that might be in the way. I had one parent who entirely ghosted a project, who basically was absent. And what had essentially happened was they had to drop everything because they were in the hospital. But to an outsider, that just looked like they were done, and they panicked. And so to connect was to say, something's probably going on. I don't know what it is. You don't have to tell me. But when you are ready, we can come back to the work ahead. And we are thinking of you, and we are supporting you in whatever challenging time that you are having. Mm-hmm. And so I think this kind of goes both ways, doesn't it, in terms of this, like I mentioned, a very human connection. So what do you think helps on your end? Right.
I will answer that in a minute, but I have one question to follow up on my previous question, was more around being in conference or at conferences. I know families are invited to conferences, but the experiences have been mixed. And I remember you told me a story about your experience a couple of years back in Calgary that you felt was very important to you to share.
Oh yes, and that's I think going back to the idea of people come with these huge ideas and understanding as to what the work is ahead, but sometimes you need to kind of bring this down to just little steps in terms of where people are at, because families and patients, we all come with our experiences, and sometimes they're bitter ones. Sometimes they are not trusting relationships. But to facilitate change, We think that some people come with expectations that you can change all the things, that this entire problem that I have in my mind is going to come back and it's going to be solved all in this time frame we have together.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we need to kind of rein in our expectations and in a mentorship way and in a compassionate way as well too, because I think sometimes we feel that we need relationships that aren't entirely going to be functional, but even angry people have something to say. We just need to do it in a compassionate way. And so thank you for reminding me about that, Jan Willem. I forgot about that part.
Well, I felt it was such a powerful example that it's important to share. Yeah, so you asked me, right, what sort of helps us as researchers and us together in the partnership. I do think that, like anything in life, you have to educate yourself, you have to educate others. So teaching and education does help to have the concepts but also the tools that you can use and apply in practice. And that's what we are seeing now. I think the family engagement in research course is a good example where it's not so much about teaching what research is. It's really about getting together, having and learning how to have meaningful conversations and to have positive experiences, so that when you move on and further develop those partnerships, that you can apply them. And it's a learning process, right? Because sometimes it goes well, and sometimes you have to take a step back and reflect. Maybe this doesn't go really well. So we did in our research group an exercise about really sort of what are the things we would like to continue, what is going well, but also maybe there are things we should stop doing. For example, we had a quite large patient and family advisory committee. And one of the things we noticed is that we may have not been as effective or could not listen to each other as well. So we started to work in smaller working groups, still keeping the full patient family advisory group together, so that partnership, but then also having more meaningful working groups. And then people can self-identify them with a topic and work on something that is meaningful to them. The last thing is, being flexible. As you just said, life happens and you have to be sensitive to circumstances and not being judgmental. And we all have something to contribute, and just being welcoming. And a very last point I want to say, I know we have to finish off, is keep it manageable and don't make it too big for yourself. So for everyone listening today and thinking, oh my goodness, where to start? Every journey starts with the first step, and just take a step that you think is good and go from there.
Absolutely. If I were to have one last quick parent and patient advice as well too, is that it's okay to speak up. It takes bravery to do it the first time, but I can definitely say that it continues to get easier over time to do so as well. Well, moving back here. So what we are looking to do today is offer an opportunity to exercise some of that intention. And as Jan Willem mentioned, just take one thing and go with it. Just pick a goal. And so as everyone has been live tweeting using the EACD 2021 hashtag, we would like to see what your goal is and what your intention is. Just say that out to the social media world and make it known that you are have an intention to continue on in this fashion. Go ahead, Jan Willem.
No, I think that commitment is extremely important. So I really look forward to seeing your messages. I think we should make a commitment to ourselves right here, and as we love to share that on social media. So looking forward to that.
Absolutely, I'm going to head to Twitter after for sure. So if there's any questions in regards to we have one for you, which is when it comes to partnerships, which of these themes do you find most challenging right now? Where is your project at, essentially?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we just want to say thank you for having us, and we'll continue on with the panel discussion here very soon.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ray, for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray and Jan Willem, for sharing your wonderful experiences and lessons learned. I think one of the major values of CanChild is always the willingness to share experiences and to learn from each other. So thank you very much. And it was a very nice chat in the questions and answers, and it had to deal with well, how can you go? How can you start going? And it is related to the F words, what we all know is from CanChild too. And said you have to find a functional, fun, fit team of friends that can continue to work in the future. And yesterday, in another meeting, we added another F word that was flexibility. So I think we learned a lot from you. Thank you very much. And we go on to the panel discussion where we can, well, combine everything we heard today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're gonna invite all the partners of the panel discussion. Emma, Alvaro, Alain should come also. Kasia, Alexandre. Hoping that they are in a waiting room somewhere online.
Yes, Sylvain, we are there.
Cool. So, and then we maybe miss Alexandre, who should come with us. So I don't know, Dominic or someone for the PCO. Can you try to reach Alexandre? I will try also.
Okay. Maybe shall we start to the discussion? We have had so many important ideas shared together. I was so impressed by the breadth of experience and initiative that was shared today. So maybe can we start asking you what will you bring home from what you heard today? I don't know who wants to start, but in this idea that we are to consider care, research, and innovation. Maybe we didn't hear that much about innovation, more about care and research. So with the new landscape of user and professional partnership, what will you bring home as an initiative that you would like to develop on your homeland? Alvaro, you're the youngest in our group, so plenty of future for new projects. Or Mario, Alvaro?
Yeah.
Yeah. What will you bring home from today?
In my particular field, maybe in early intervention, we have seen today how, for example, its picture, its photo cannot be anymore a professional working alone with a child in a room of a clinical setting without the family, leaving the family out of the assessment and the intervention process. We have seen today how we need two to tango and how this family professional partnership it's being implemented all over Europe. and we have saw examples from Poland, from Spain, from Turkey, with its particular strengths and challenges. But I am happy because we are on the road, and as Dr. Gorter have just said, every journey starts with a first step. And maybe this day, which has been intense and exciting, could be one.
Marjolien, can you tell what you will bring home? You usually share with others, but we'd like to know what you will take home from today.
Thank you, Ella. Yes, what I take home from today is that there's so many wonderful things going on, and well, this kind of meetings bring things together that we are not aware of. So it's so nice to see from all those countries what's going on, and that there's not one kind of cookbook how to partner, or that it's some guidelines that we have to follow. But it's well, maybe it comes back to what Rachel and Jan Willem were saying. Just do it, start. Don't be afraid of taking some wrong steps. It's a journey. Doing it together with some beautiful views, but also sometimes views that you think, well, that was not the right direction. Let's find another way. And the best way to do it is to do it together and learn from each other. So I'm really inspired by all the examples I've heard today.
Okay, thank you. And Katia, you've been in several groups, and you're involved in also in the European Task Force. Could you consider some connection on the role of EACD with this partnering experience that were shared from Canada, from Netherlands, from Spain, from all over Europe? So what could be the connection between this kind of advisory board to EACD from composed with users, parents, and siblings? What can be shared at this level, and what can make connection with the experiment, research, and work going on in our network?
Before I start talking about the task force group, I think that one of the very important things today is, because you have said that we have not discussed innovation today enough. I think that looking from the Polish perspective, a partnership itself is an innovation in Poland, and I think we could hear it in the tango session. It takes two to tango. That there is not much partnership in Poland yet. So this is innovative. Another thing is that it really takes two to tango, and I think that we could see it in some sessions, and especially the task force group meeting, that really both sides need to be ready for the partnership. It's not only about professionals, it's not only about parents or users generally, but it takes two to tango. So I think that we all have to be ready for this partnership. Another thing that has been very important today was what Jan said, networks of networks. So this is a very important thing, because I think that the task force group is a network of networks. because we could see that the parents and the general users involved in the task force groups, they are already the parts of the national networks, and that now they become the members of international networks. And I think that thanks to that, we can promote the values that are important for EACD, and one of them is partnership. And one last word, sorry, because it was very important in the morning session today, self-advocacy, more children voices in European academy. And this is what we have been trying to do, but I think we have to have more and more and more children and teenagers' voices in academy.
Okay. So if we have learned from the initiative and what we call for action to implement partnership, what I understood from Jan Willem and Marjolein is it's a first step, and it can be in any direction, but what action are needed for the partnership to work? What makes it working or happening? And in fact, I can consider two ways to initiate the partnership. Of course, what is usually presented is that it is an initiative from the academic or professional side, who has the resource and the knowledge and sometimes the will to interact with stakeholders and users. But on the other side, when users feel the needs to share view, to provide ideas, how can he make connection with you, with the professionals, to be involved in the partnership if in his local neighborhood there is no resource or no willingness to interact with him or her? Who would like to answer this question?
That's a very complicated question, and I think that comes from there is a definite need sometimes to help people understand and warm up to the idea of partnership. It has been a slow growing movement. For one example, in Canada, I get a lot of families through our research course who actually have this intention, and they realize they don't even know who carries this value. And it's not like anybody wears this on a t-shirt. And so how to move forward ends up working to understand the systems upon which work is conducted, and getting to know people, and in ways that you can, engaging in conferences if you can. One instance that we have in Canada is called patientsincluded.org. And that is a way for patients to start connecting in a deeper, more accessible fashion within these systems, and get to know clinicians better as well too. And that way that they have that opportunity to connect. And it's not an easy check mark for conferences to get as well too. They have to connect with certain certifications in order for that to happen. But it really depends on the goals upon which patients and families are looking to attain, and the systems that they can slowly invest in order to see perhaps a value change come about.
Okay. Emma, maybe can you comment from your side on this idea, because it seems that you first gathered people to voice your concern and your needs, but how did you come to interact with partners, with professionals partners?
So I think I obviously speak as an adult with cerebral palsy, and And because of my background as a speech and language therapist, I was quite able to advocate for myself. But I think that is really key. I guess because I had a background, I had that innate confidence to ask questions and to challenge the system that perhaps other people who hadn't have been in my situation might have found it more difficult to do. But fundamentally what we did was we began to share my story. I began to talk to people about my experiences and why I thought things needed to be better and different for adults with cerebral palsy. And in doing that, I grew connections of people who had also been feeling the same way, not only within the adult CP community, but within professionals who had been working in the field and also had shared the same frustrations perhaps, or views on the way that things could and should be different. And through sharing my story and through talking to people, I was then able to be the conduit of putting people together who may not have been connected before, hearing different people's perspectives. I was able to stand from the outside and connect different people. And what we did was we began to form a tribe of people who perhaps had different perspectives because they either came from the research community or the medical community or the community themselves. So they had different viewpoints and perspectives, but they all had a shared passion about the need for support for adults with cerebral palsy. And it was that joint passion and that joint want for the community that brought us all together. And it's about respecting different people's perspectives and bringing those people together. And you know, we work very closely in our organisation with the research community to build up an information base so that we have the evidence to back up the things that we're saying. But we were very clearly told that we can have all the evidence in the world, and that is really valuable. But unless we have the voice of the community behind us, making a really loud noise, that things aren't going to change. And so that's what we set about trying to do. Does that answer your question in some way?
Yes, of course. And Sylvain, you're handling the question, and maybe you can add, but you were pioneering this idea of gathering a group of 4 users and 4 professionals. So what will you take home for your next steps? Sylvain, can you hear us?
So the first question is how do we meet each other? And we have to knock at the good door, actually. And yes, this is opportunities. This is weakness in here. But once it happens, once you meet, I think having a project, having goals, having shared goals first, and having an idea of making something together, even if it is research or innovation or making a conference like today, this is the first step. And once you have that, I think this is not a just do it, as Jan Willem and Rachel would say. I mean, you just want to do it, but this is not easy to do it. And I feel that defining the roles, you know, once you have your goals together, defining the roles together, and you can have the examples of the involvement matrix, which is really helpful in understanding a role in making a project. And I mean, this was cited during the conference. I think this is a really nice tool. I mean, I think we need a willing, but we also need tools. And this one is really good tool to work together and to go forward. So I'm not answering exactly your question, but I wanted to share this because this was clearly something I think is a key, you know, the goals and the roles. And maybe Alexandre, you want to challenge us a little bit on some points. I've seen some comments. Maybe you want to share.
Alors maintenant on est en. Okay. I can. Yeah, I would like to answer to your question when you ask how do we meet, and when you say how do we meet, what I often see is that it's because often we're not in conditions to hear the others, because we fear from them for other imaginary things that we have in our head, because we want to be acknowledged, we want to be loved, we fear to not have enough success, enough money at the end of the month, etc. And so often when I tried to make some comments on the chat talking about theology that I studied for some years, and I was shocked by how they were talking about co-designing environment where people can make the experience of what is around us, like the joy, the love, etc., the friendship, the serenity of life. And I was shocked how we don't capitalize on what was reflected during 2,000 years on this same question, which is how do we meet? And how do we help others to be in conditions where they can meet others too? And so one of the first questions for me, the first answers it was, for me, in my own perspective, in a very Spinozian way. I studied Spinoza during many years too. We are looking for joy. We are looking for joy, and we are trying to replicate the condition in which we were when we experienced this joy. And what I hear today is that a lot of people desire to make this connection, desire to work like that. And so maybe the first thing we have to also to live with is that we shouldn't judge ourselves on the quality of intentions of individual human practices to say why it doesn't work, why I try to do, I have the intention to, but it doesn't work. We should always consider the cultural, the social condition in which we try to do that. And I was talking about existential, spiritual work that we have to do to have serenity, which is one of the conditions to meet the other in a good way, without projecting on himself what we want to do, what we try to avoid in our own life, and so with them we're projecting those kind of things. So I would like for us, I saw a lot of well-intentioned people. I heard a lot of people who wants to do it, who already did do it since many years, and for many years. And so the first thing is, don't judge ourselves too hard on that. The only thing we can do is, for me, is to share that with others, work as a collective, and try to learn from the experiment as Willem told us minutes ago.
Can I add to that, if that's okay?
Yes, of course.
I think I'm thinking from the side of a researcher, as I am a researcher and may contribute that. I think we can make it easier by opening our door, so the door is not closed. And I mean that not literally. Sometimes it is, our door is closed. Researchers like to be in a room and close the door, so we need to open the door, but also our virtual door. And now we have so many opportunities worldwide with the virtual connections and the networking. Take today at the European conference, is already a place to meet, and I see there are 152 participants joining, so we are already meeting in some capacity. The other thing is just to find that common ground, and I think we talk maybe or think a little bit too much still in terms of partnerships with the head, with our brain. So it's more a cognitive exercise where it should be more to the heart, right? Partnership in the end is connecting. I think that's something I learned from Ray and also from our conversation today. I have heard it before, but when Ray said it so well this morning, is really that human connection and making relationships meaningful, and that requires trust. And I think trust is not something that you sort of have a right to get. You have to give it first. So if we start giving trust to each other, then the trust will come.
Okay. So we come with joy and trust. That's really strong words. Okay. Do we have more questions, Sylvain, from the chat? I don't know whether you could pick some.
So there is a question for Emma. I think Emma has some fans in the audience, and it would be interesting to hear your experiences and take-home message from this conference, especially. And this is a big question, actually.
That's huge. I think what struck me most about the conference is the voice of the children, and listening to their aspirations for the future, and that as children they are not. They don't see that their ability or disability as barriers to their success in the future. And I think the onus is on us to work in partnership to enable those children as much as possible to strive towards those aspirations. And I also think that it is about the paediatric communities and the adult communities working together in some sort of in a partnership, in a seamless way, so that we can prepare our children for the future, but giving them their voice. They quite eloquently have thoughts and views and opinions from very young ages, as we saw in those videos, and I think we have a duty to honour that throughout the work that we do. That the research that's carried out is carried out thinking about what the needs of the community actually are, and what are the questions that need to be answered, and what are the questions that their communities have about their conditions, and what will best help them. I guess those are kind of my messages from the conference, is that actually that we can sit as professionals and researchers in a room and talk about all these fundamental questions, but what is at the heart of everything is the needs of the children. And as an advocate for adults, as adults with disabilities going through life, so that they can live their best life. And we have a duty to support that in whatever way we can. So when we talk about partnership, it's not really about us and our needs. It's about putting those children or those clients front and center.
Yeah, I think it's on that point. Maybe I'm stepping out of my role of moderator, but I think EACD should consider this aspect, because EACD is dedicated to children, and in fact, in its will to interact with users, it is led to interact with young adults. It is setting up a user task force with parents and young adults, and it means that in some way the movement should go on both ways. EACD will have to take more into consideration the life trajectory. What can we learn from what the child will become? And it means taking care of those concerns of these adults. And of course, we need to stay in our roots, who are to take care of children. So maybe the idea would be a challenging idea would be to set an advisory board with under 14 children. To have their voice too on maybe not every week, but from time to time, maybe this could be an idea. But considering the life trajectory and what we can learn from what the children become to to take this in the consideration, in the deliberation, in the decision that are made for children is an important topic. Okay, so if we can move to maybe we have discussed
Can I add something?
Yeah. Of course.
Because I want to challenge GMC, because I think that the next step should be a children task force group. So this is what we might try to have, and I really do agree with Emma. I really love this English word empowerment, because we've got this word power inside of it, and when we were promoting or advising our school this year and trying to find new students, we had this motto that you will find and develop your superpowers in our school. So I think that it is really important to let children know what their superpowers are, and our task is to help them develop these superpowers. Alexandre said something about joy, and I think he's very much right, because I think that working with our group in a partnership was an extremely enjoyable experience for all of us, and that is probably the reason why we would love to continue it, and we would love to continue this partnership. And for me in Poland, it is clear that we need to take small steps. I know that in the organization that I work for, we have taken the first one and maybe the second one, but now we need a third and the fourth and so on. We cannot expect things to happen just like that, fast. It needs time and work and hard work on both sides. So we just have to take step after a step.
Okay. So it's a good introduction to the last part that Sylvain suggested in the discussion about we come through take-home message actions, and so what are the barriers to overcome now, and maybe more interesting, what are the facilitators for the partnership that we want, that we long for, and that some of you already experience. Who would like to initiate, or maybe Alexandre, can you come on this point to bring some light, or?
As I have some sounds trouble, can you just synthesize the questions, because I try with Sylvain to call him to hear you, but I have some troubles to do that. Can you just try to?
Yeah, I can do it because I am on phone at the same time with him. So, okay, Alexandre, can you take the phone? Can you take your phone? Yeah. Alexandre, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Okay, the question is about the facilitators and the barriers to partner in the different ways. So do you have any clue that could help us in building partnership in the different fields that we speak about?
Yeah, I can try that.
So I'm going to try that. Yeah. What we saw in our own experiences was that one of the facilitators, as John will, I don't see the beginning of the name, but as Willem told us, the body is important. If you are with people who are very really experiencing the world with their brain mainly, it's easy to stay at the concept level, or to talk about those things, and those people will be able to to practice it concretely after having those conversations. But often in research network, etc., what I saw a lot is one of the key success factors was to always have pilot projects in care, directly in care, that were giving information, allowing to test hypotheses that we had to see if it works. So don't. What I saw is we shouldn't take for granted the fact that we have a lot of people who are able to use rational discussion or argumentation or understanding, and that it's going to change their practice or it's going to help them to know how to practice partnership. The more important thing is if you do those kind of transversal group support or research groups, etc. The most important thing is to be sure to be able to experiment what we are working on the field on a really regular basis. And the second one for us was to often have a very what you already underlined many times is the fact to be anchored in a collective and a community-based group, which help us to have this counterbalance between the institutional or organizational or professional interests, needs, etc., and the ones from not just the one living with that, but also a more large, more widened community of people that helps you in a constructive way be sure that you answer to the needs of the people concerned, but also the other people living with them. And maybe one of the other ones, the last one, sorry, is we spend we accompanied maybe 10 research networks working with patients in Canada, and what we saw is like many time, resources, money, and people were used to evaluate what was the result or the impact of that. And I think we should be careful about this work on indicators, very formal, objective indicators, because we spend, I think, too much time doing that rather than doing partnership in care directly. So maybe just be vigilant about to be aware that sometimes we are too we have too much requirements of about what should do or not do working in partnership. And so maybe this is the last thing I would like to share.
Okay. What my feeling from being a participant in some of those conferences is that okay, can you hear me? Yeah. My feeling is that in those conferences the speakers are leaders. I mean, you don't speak here unless you are a leader. You need to be invited to be a speaker, or you need to present work to be a speaker. But in daily life, we have spots. The leader are on some spots, and what happens for the others? Those who don't live in their area near Utrecht, CanChild, Brest, or London. So how could we make these innovation, this way of working, more widely available for those who need it? Because partnering is such a good way to handle relations between professionals and users. And how can we make it more accessible everywhere, and not only in top academic centers? Who wants to start on this?
I think I can speak to that a little bit. I think I started parenting in the days when posters were still on the wall with a little tearaway phone number or email. And I think that we need to consider a bigger picture in terms of how we create systems of education. Partnership should be a part of the parenting or patient experience. It should be a natural transition in the culture of care to begin with. So in terms of messaging, I think that we need to create not only systems that support that type of philosophy, but I think we also need to consider further education to bring everybody up to speed as well too. We have a national initiative right now in Canada because Canada chronically underfunds children called We Can for Kids, and we have been looking to coordinate a health framework for children to kind of follow them across the lifespan. So you're looking at intersectional needs from any angle possible, and putting that all together and to create plans as to what are some long-term goals and what are some short-term needs during this pandemic. And what is going to happen with that long-term is that it's at a government level for policy. They've warmed up to the idea, but the rest of this is going to be media education and catch everybody up to the status of the world around us. And so we need to move past the clinic poster and start thinking in bigger pictures and innovating in that respect.
Thank you. Who wants to add on this? The connected ones.
I may share how I do it in Poland. So first of all, I had a training with my team on family-centered services together with the CanChild team. And I started introducing family-centered services, family-centered approach rather, at the school that I'm a principal of. And this was the first step. And I also asked my co-workers, okay, what do you think? What can we do to become more family-centered? And then when we have introduced some changes in the way we work, we started sharing our practices with other centers, other schools in Poland. So we try to show them that we have tried, we have made some mistakes on our way, but finally there are some things that we have succeeded in and that we strongly recommend doing it in other places because it really works. As the CanChild research shows, it makes both sides more satisfied. The work is more satisfactory, and it's satisfactory also for parents and for children. We as a parental organization are often asked for opinions by our government. There are a lot of changes at the moment being introduced into the Polish system. So this is where I always talk about family-centered approach and F words and ICF. And that's how I try to implement it and put some kind of pressure on authorities to introduce it in Poland and to put it into some regulations that we have. I also work with students, and when I talk to them at university, I always tell them that this is a very important part. And I also tell them, if you want to be innovative, if you want to be up to date, if you want to do things that are internationally done, and you want to do something that is really important and innovative, do it. Try to do it. So these are the things that I try to do in Poland, and I'm not the only one.
Okay. If there is one last...
I don't know, there is maybe one question from the chat. If you agree, maybe we will close after. Can I ask the question from the chat?
Yes, please.
Okay, so I mean, at the panel, from your experience, do you have any tips on how to involve families with more severely impaired children who sometimes do not have the capacity to participate in research due to vast medical needs that they so I'm sure that Rachel or Katia may have some input, but maybe another who wants to start, and this will be the end, I think, the last question. Okay, Rachel.
My son was someone who, when I participated in research, one of the challenges ended up being that I would have to go to a university. I would have to take time off of work. I would have to find childcare that wasn't just the neighbor next door, but very specialized childcare. And so I think if there was one big tip, it would be to make those experiences accessible, is a big, important part. I think as well, too, we need to consider that we can effectively be our kids' microphones, that our kids have their own set of values, no matter the function levels. I was gifted myself with the experience of my son finally finding his words the last 6 months of his life before he passed away. And it was very interesting to hear what he had to say along the way, that he thought that he was a great person, and that nurses are mean and they poke him, and that his gym teacher is the best person in the world. And so, I mean, not everybody is gifted with an experience like that, but they do have the things that they say. Our kids talk to us all the time. I think that's what I'm trying to say. So if we can make those experiences accessible, and we can represent in a way that reflects the spirit of who they are, then we're going to do great things.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah, thank you very much. Alan.
Thank you. Yeah, we will end the questions with your answer, and making it more accessible means also in the organization to consider the support and the time and the funds for being accessible. Maybe what I would like to pick from several talks that I heard. Maybe the first one would be one from Alexandre. The line is not very good for him to answer question, but what he said, I think, was very important, that every interaction should be an opportunity to empower people. And I think that was the strongest word from him. There is all the technicality, but if we can keep this in mind. And in another session, I heard from Sibyl that generosity brings generosity, and I think the way to connect with people is to offer something, and we will get something in return, and that can go both ways. And if we want to start, she said also something important, that maybe see what is available there where we are, rather than fish for specific competencies that may be difficult. So consider your project based maybe on what is available. That could be a good idea to start somewhere and move from that. I think also it's important to consider time, because all of this for the child, his parents, is about a life trajectory. And time is both a sequence and a duration. So I think considering support for and adjusting to the needs of time is important, and we have to consider this, and maybe also use a rhythm. Maybe that's more music than time, but we are not using the same noise or the same tone. We must change. We must go faster or slow from time to time. one also an idea is that every journey starts with a first step, but that's an old idea that stems from Jacques, the fatalist and his master. At the end, you know, Jacques asked the master, "Okay, can you drive me? Can you drive me forward?" And the master says, "But yeah, but where is forward? What do you mean?" And Jacques says, "Oh, but it's an old trick of humanity. Forward is everywhere. So I think there is no right direction. Is the one, just the one that you select." And if we want to conclude with the video of children, I think an important point by Emma was saying that children see no barriers. So I think we should aim for their vision and think that there is no barrier if we endeavor, if we work, if we collaborate, and if we are joyful. That was a good idea as well. So I want to thank the organizer, all the committee. I want to thank all the speakers. I want to tell so many names, but thank the audience, thanks the technical staff that was quite supportive, and maybe thank also EACD for taking this initiative and moving so strongly in what I consider a good direction. So thank you, all of us. Thank you, all of you, and listen to the kid. Alvaro has selected a message that will be shared through the video. So and remember that all the kid voices will be available after the session. You can still watch them in the proper session. So thank you very much, and goodbye, and let's see the children and see you all next time.